What's up, crew? Welcome back to the latest episode of Tab Overload. It's been like, what, a week, maybe two? And bear with me, you guys. I have been going through the most insane, just a whirlwind of life events. And I swear, every time I'm like, I have hit a point. I am gonna make it above this. I'm gonna feel so much better. I'm gonna, implement my practices, all these things that I know can help me feel better. And as soon as I'm at that point where I'm like, I've made it, boom, something like happens. And then I feel like knocked down all over again. And it's okay because it's been extremely tiring and overwhelming, but I don't give up. That is why I'm here today to share with you the latest episode of Tab Overload. And I'm so excited for this one. And I feel like lately I've been saying that so much. Like, I'm just so eager for this episode and it's so cool, blah, blah, blah. And it's truly because I've talked to the most smart, eloquent, knowledgeable people. And this is exactly why I wanted to create this platform is because having the opportunity to talk with so many people about so many different things that mean a lot to people and the values that we have has been so just reassuring me that I'm doing the right thing by creating this platform and putting voices out there to be heard. Today, I spoke with the most amazing soul. She is so smart. Her name is Mahi, and we are diving into the Saturn return. And so, if you know anything about astrology, the Saturn return is big thing. And if you don't know anything about astrology, this is your chance to learn what are these astrology freaks geeked out about when it comes to the Saturn return. We also give a little background into overall general concept of astrology in the episode. So if you're also like, I don't believe in that, I don't even know where to start, take a listen. You are listening to an expert. I just kind of want to get into it. For anyone who's just meeting you and learning about you, can you share a little bit about who you are and how you get into astrology?
Absolutely. My name is Mahalet. I go by Mahi for short, and my brand is called Just One Gursha. Just One Gursha, the word Gursha is like a hand-fed bite of food. It's a word in Amharic, which is a native language in Ethiopia. And my intention with Just One Gosha is to offer people a new way of looking at something, a new way of understanding themselves. But we have a superstition around Gorshas where if you only have one Gorsha from somebody, it's bad luck that you have to have a second one. So that's kind of the cheekiness behind Just One Gorsha is, I invite people to try something different to understand themselves through astrology and just give it a try.
Mhm.
But I am a little superstitious, so I always hope that you come back for a second Gursha. And through my work, through birth chart readings and corporate events and creating content and writing on Substack, I hope to help people empower themselves with tools, better understanding of their birth chart, and really use it in a practical way.
Mhm.
I'm a lawyer turned astrologer, so I really think about the
Wow.
birth chart in a strategic way, and hence why I work with a lot of people in corporate spaces or business owners. But there is so much opportunity and so much richness and insight you can get just from the map of when you were born. So that's what I help people do.
That's so cool. And I remember a few years ago, I always thought astrology, when you read it in the newspaper, it's about you. And then I think a couple years ago, I learned that people actually use it for businesses too and making decisions that
Absolutely.
way.
Absolutely. I mean, it's used at the highest levels that you would imagine. It's really just a tool. It's an analytical tool full of data. So whether you're looking at your own chart or a business's chart, you can gain a lot of insight. I've created marketing campaigns for businesses based on the birth chart of their business and when it was
Hmm.
created. So it's really just this infinite tool that can help us understand seasons, times, and opportunities, understanding your strengths, and weaknesses. And Yeah, I love it. Like I love any language that is super complex and analytical and making it useful for people.
Hmm.
So it's really cool to be able to do this work.
That's so cool. And you said you were a lawyer turned astrologer. And so, was there like a specific moment for you where you were like, or an experience where you was like, I want to go into astrology deeper?
Yeah, it's so funny. I think the two are a lot more connected than I had realized. Like I always loved like writing and research and being able to communicate and advocate for people. And that's kind of how I ended up on the path to law. When I entered law school, I knew I wanted to do something more business related or something a little more creative down the
Hmm.
line. And I didn't really know how it would pan out. But when I graduated and started working in a law firm, I started thinking about creating a blog and doing something a little creative, and that's kind of how this was born. And studying astrology in order to be able to give people readings, I realized what a gift my legal background was because it's like
Yeah.
so much data analysis and like making something really complicated to be really simple and
Hmm.
accessible and giving people options in different scenarios and talking to people about like some of the most difficult experiences of their life. I feel like all of those skills really translated so much. And I still work in something legal related, more creative. I work in legal tech as well, but it's so nice to be able to work one on one with clients in this way.
Oh my gosh. And like, how would you say it shows up in your life now? Like astrology, do you like check your chart daily or like how
Yeah,
are you
that's so
finding that
funny.
balance?
I am not one of those astrologers who checks my chart daily. It's so funny for us. Our own charts can really have a lot of blind spots. Like it's really
Hmm.
hard to read and analyze something when it's like you also have all those biases. So it's so much easier to read other people's charts. And like when I need a good reading, like I go to an astrologer that I love and
Yeah.
somebody else who can like step outside. But yeah, with like, random people, it's so much easier for me to get like really in depth and really analytical. My husband is like constantly asking me like what's going on with the moon, what's going on with my chart, like what's the deed, or he'll come back from work and he works with like there's a lot of kids and like parents in his work. And so he'll say, people are acting crazy. What's in the transit? So always having conversations like that. But no, really, like I love being able to update people on social media with transits or share posts on Substack and just try and make something that seems like really complicated and scary into a useful set of a few things that you can
Hmm.
do and focus on.
Exactly. And that's so I love that. And so astrology, I feel like we just dove right into it. And I like it's such a general umbrella and like people everyone's heard about it or whatever, but like it can mean so many different things to different people. So like how would you personally define it?
Absolutely. That's a great question. I think astrology to me is a similar tool to think of, kind of like mathematics or meteorology is a really similar one too, where it's a tool that you can use for many different intentions in many different frameworks.
Hmm.
And so, whereas I'm looking at birth charts and really focusing on helping individual people with their relationships, with their career, like things that impact them, there's some astrologers who are like solely focused more on economic forecasting. Like there's astrologers who are like astrologers for all the investment bankers in New York, and that's all they're
Yeah.
focused on. So you can kind of find your niche and your specialty based on whatever skills you have beyond just being able to analyze the charts. But it is like similar to math where it's just like infinite. There's so many types of astrology.
Hmm.
Astrology has also very interestingly like developed in different parts of the world independently, which is very cool. Like, China has a very ancient astrology system, but so does India.
Oh
Ethiopia has been
wow.
studying the stars for like 15,000 years. That's where my background is from. And there's also astrological practices that like the Mayans were doing. And you see cross sections and you see just so many shared aspects to this. So it's sprouted up in so many different places and been used for so many different reasons. So I think there's like a kind of astrology for everyone, whether
Yeah.
you're using it for your personal growth or you only want to use it for your business and nothing else, or only for your investments, I think there's a astrologer for you.
Right. Do you have any like, or have you seen like some of like big misconceptions when it comes to it?
Absolutely. I think that there's a lot of misconceptions around religion and astrology. I think there's like some people who feel like, the religious spaces they're in have really like demonized astrology, or they feel like it's a violation of their religion. That's a really common question. And I'm
Hmm.
somebody who's religious myself. I'm Orthodox Christian and I'm an astrologer. And I think that it's also important to navigate these conversations. I've learned from a lot of astrologers who are also religious. Like I've taken classes with Jewish astrologers and Muslim astrologers and
Hmm.
Christian astrologers. And there are people who want to use astrology more like it is their religion, but that's
Yeah.
really not astrology. That's just someone's own personal preference.
Hmm.
So I love having those conversations and just like holding space for people to be able to talk about any concerns that they might have. Because, I've definitely been in that position too.
Yeah. I feel like with people, when they think astrology, they think of their sun sign, and that's like all they know. So, like, can you explain the difference between your sun, moon, and rising?
Yes, definitely. So the sun sign is the part of your birth chart that you can learn just with your birthday. You really don't need any other information. So when you look at a magazine horoscope page and you look at your birthday, it'll tell you when it is. Your birth chart is the full map of the time that you were born. So, like, your
Hmm.
sun sign is just what zodiac sign the sun was in, but like, there's this whole map of planets and asteroids and points that were in a certain place at the time that you were born. And astrology is really a reflection and analysis of those relationships and how they evolve over time. You come here at a specific time and enter into a specific relationship with the universe. And so, as these planets move, you have this map of your own personal seasons that are going
Hmm.
on. So, when you do a full birth chart reading, we're not just looking at where the sun was, we're looking at where the horizon was in your rising sign, where the moon was, the Mercury, Mars. We'll get into depth with this, like with your
Hmm.
birth chart, but you're really getting the full depth, and you can go into so much more depth. There's aspects of how the planets are in relationship to each other. There's degree theories, and that's where it gets like really mathematical and technical. It's like it's kind of like an you can go on and on and on about somebody's chart. Like we can talk about your chart for like 10 hours and that still wouldn't be enough time. So it's just so much more opens up the more that you get to work with your astrology.
Right. Oh my gosh. And so let's get into the Saturn returns. So, like,
Yes.
what is it? And why do people make like such a big deal about it?
The Saturn return is definitely the biggest and most notorious astrological transit that happens in your 20s. Saturn is a planet that, takes its time to make its way around the sun. It takes
Hmm.
about 28 and a half years for it to get back to the zodiac sign it was in at the time we were born. And
Oh.
Saturn in a birth chart represents responsibility, commitment, the things you have to be patient for and build.
Hmm.
And so we call the transit of when that Saturn comes back when you're about 28 and a half to about 30 and a half years old, is that whole time is your Saturn return. And it's the first time that you have enough life experiences to look at the way you were raised, to look at the messaging you got from the world around you, and really rewrite and decide if this is for you,
Wow.
and where you're going to take responsibility and where you're going to show up with more commitment. It is not a glamorous transit. I like to use the analogy that if you've seen the Karate Kid, that
Hmm.
season with Mr. Miyagi where he's doing the wax on and the wax
Yeah.
off. And it's like, he doesn't want to do it. He doesn't understand why this is connected to him being better at his craft. But over time, he understands how important that was and all the skills it taught him and a
Hmm.
detail he learned to pay attention to. And that is really what your Saturn return is like. In that season, in your late 20s, you hear people complain, it's so rough. Oh my gosh, this is so challenging. I thought the 20s were supposed to be the best time in my life. But it's really a time, a season where everything around you is asking you to take on more responsibility. And you
Mm-hmm.
can either show up for it or you can run away from it. That's the thing about astrology. The map is just your potential, but you can choose to run away from your responsibilities. But when you choose to show up for your Saturn return, and really set solid foundations for the next 28 and a half years of your life until Saturn comes back much later, um, then your 30s end up being fantastic. You can
Yeah.
see so much more success and support. And like when people are just like living for their 30s, a lot of times it's because, they showed up for their Saturn return.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's significant season. You have seen so many like iconic figures go through challenging times in their Saturn return and, come out transformed. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really a time to be excited for and think about how you can be prepared for it and be mindful of those themes. So yeah, I'm really excited to look at your chart because you are before your Saturn return. So you
I
have some
know.
time.
I
Yes.
know. I'm just getting prepared.
I love it. That's the way to think about it. I think instead of like being, scared or hesitant about it, it's just like looking at it head on and seeing it really as an opportunity. I wasn't practicing astrologer. Actually, I started practicing as an astrologer during my Saturn return, but
No
from the beginning, I was
way.
just like, I want to have a positive outlook on this. Like, I just want to like show up for the grunt work and just like understand that things aren't going to be like glamorous. Like it's just okay to like put my head down and really focus in this season. And yeah, I'm happy I did because the 30s are just so lovely when you've done
Yeah.
that work. Yeah.
Uh, if you like don't look at your chart, like can people still like I guess tell if they're going through the Saturn return? If they like, let's say, just don't pay attention to astrology, are there like signs?
Absolutely. A lot of people subconsciously will use language around their astrology without realizing it. Like people who
Hmm.
are going through like the midlife transits, the second Saturn return, will use words like midlife crisis commonly. Um, You'll use also, I'll also often hear people who are like, I don't know anything about astrology, but they'll be like a Sagittarius and they'll say, I'm such a sharpshooter. And it's like, that's literally the most Sagittarius thing.
Yeah.
Like, it is an archer. It's like, you don't know, but you know.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
nature is all connected. So yeah, I don't think that like you necessarily need the language. Like people who aren't comfortable with like using astrology, I'm like, that's fine. Like as long as you have a tool that you feel like is helping you grow and develop and be the person that you want to be, like that is fantastic. This is just one option.
Yeah, and like, okay, so before we get into mine, I just want to ask you, like, do you believe astrology is like more about destiny or free will?
Oh, I think it's both. And I think that's what
Hmm.
makes it so confusing is because like as humans, I think we want to like box ourselves in, but at the like to me, I think astrology, it's not necessarily like organizing everything. I think it's just showing us like how we're all this interesting, special blend of our own
Yeah.
experiences. Like I'll have clients come in, especially at corporate events where I'm doing lots of mini birth chart readings. Have clients come in and say, "Oh my gosh, like I know this is bad about my chart." And I'm like, everyone has their special soup of trauma and joy and abundance, like in their birth chart. Like everything is balanced, and we also have free will. So it's really like a map of potential. I've done birth chart readings for twins who were born
Hmm.
just minutes apart, and their charts don't express themselves the same way because
Wow.
they grew up together. So it's like
Yeah.
you evolve in relationship to the people around you and the people in your house. So when you have a twin who has a similar birth chart but not an identical birth chart, you two are growing in relation to each other. And so you are going to express those traits in a very different way. And so it's like even if Sun, Moon, Mars, Mercury, Venus, everything is the same, they're going to express it really differently. So there's absolutely free will is a huge component. And I think that's why it's important for us as astrologers to always give like lots of examples and be very open with our language when we interpret, because things are not always going to be precisely the same. I'm a huge proponent of like I'll list like 4 or 5 ways that something can express itself because
Hmm.
I'm really trying to capture the energy of something, but I don't really know how it's going on in your life. And so by doing that, I hope that like it can give people the gist of what that is and they can create that connection regardless of how it shows up.
Yeah, and that's so cool to think about it that way. I think another like a perception I have on astrology is that a lot of people are kind of like private about it. Like like about their charts and they don't really want to like show other people. So like that's why I'm excited that we're actually going to look at mine because I'm like, yeah, let's just
Yes.
do it and like so people can actually see what it's like.
Totally, totally. No, I think it's so helpful. I do believe in like being private about like your birth information. I
Hmm.
like recently posted on TikTok telling people, I was like, please do not post your birth information in my TikTok comments because my background is in law and like there are scammers. Like one of the things you do as like a baby law firm associate is literally redacting people's birthdays from legal
Hmm.
documents before you turn it over in court just to protect them from scammers. And people like want to share it on TikTok. Like I understand the enthusiasm, but let's protect our birth information. It is dangerous. Like this is the internet. So
Yeah.
that's why I'm always like if I have the opportunity to like read a chart like this, like I'm not going to say the birth information on the air because there are scammers out here and I want you to be safe.
Oh my gosh, that's exactly what we need. Someone keeping us safe because
Yeah.
I could totally see a lot of people like posting that online.
It happens too often. I'm really considering deleting the comments because I'm just like I don't even
Hmm.
want my page to be a safe space for scammers who
Yeah.
are looking for people's like information. I don't want people like farming it out here.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's like my fearful lawyer brain. But I was gonna share the screen of what I'm looking at if you
Yeah,
want a
let's do
visual.
it.
Okay. I'm using AstroSeek, which is a little bit technical. Not everybody might love it, but it's just so old school and clean, and it always has plenty of information. And I also use the equal house system. So I give these disclaimers because astrology house systems are a lot like systems in math, where it's like everything makes sense within the system, but you really can't, like, if you cross over things, it can get confusing.
Hmm.
So I just want to say that in case any of your placements are a little off in another house system, this is the equal house system,
This
and
is
this is your
so,
beautiful chart.
I know, I'm like, what is this? Like, there's just so, how do you even read this?
We're going to talk about your birth chart. We're going to talk about Saturn return, but I wanted to know if there's any other themes or anything else that you want to make sure we discuss about your birth chart.
You know what? Honestly, I don't know if this is even specific enough, but like I just feel like I've been going through a lot recently, like within my career and like just the most crazy things happening. I got hit by a car.
Oh
Like,
my goodness.
yeah, like
Oh,
okay.
I'm looking straight down at your third house. I'm like, what was going on with that transit? But I don't want to get distracted. Okay, so you want to talk about like transformations. We want to talk about
Yeah.
Saturn return.
Hmm.
Um, awesome. So I'll start where I always like to start with birth chart readings is actually your rising sign. Because that is where the horizon was at the time that you were born, and
Hmm.
you have a Scorpio rising.
Yeah.
And when you have a Scorpio rising, you like to look at the world with this very analytical lens. Like you want to understand what's beneath the surface of things. You want to
Yeah.
understand like power dynamics. You want to understand why things are the way they are. You want to go on like deep research dives. But you also care about transforming yourself. Like you're the kind of
Hmm.
person who goes through different evolutions. Like if I were to look in your camera roll over the last decade, there's probably different eras of the way you dressed, of the way you looked, of the way
Yeah,
you did your hair.
spot on.
Um, and it's like you can reinvent yourself. Like Scorpio is great at transformation and rebirths. And so you embrace having many of those. But you also have Chiron in your first house. And Chiron is an asteroid that's very interesting because we call this like the wounded warrior.
Hmm.
And it is an experience, a belief system that at first feels like a weakness to us, is something that we're confronted with as a child, but as we get older, actually becomes a gift. It
Hmm.
actually becomes something that we help others with and that becomes part of our legacy. So you have Chiron at 29 degrees in the first house, which to me shows that like at a young age, there was an experience, and it could be like small things that somebody said, but it just like hits deep. But
Hmm.
there were experiences that made you feel like it wasn't really safe for you to like stand out and shine
Oh
and
my
like
God.
be a
Yeah.
star, like be the
Yeah.
star, like be the one that like everyone's watching, like to be the
Hmm.
one that stands out. Um, and so at a young age, you were like, oh, well, like maybe it's not okay for me to stand out. Maybe I shouldn't shine. What's beautiful about this is like actually as you get older, you'll realize that like you didn't feel like you belonged because you were born to shine. That like your otherness is the thing that gets you recognized, that makes
Hmm.
people want to watch you and makes people want to engage with you. Um, and so what's beautiful about like that Chiron expression is a lot of your legacy will be about like not just you letting yourself be seen, but like helping others be seen in some way too.
Hmm. Oh my God, that is so insanely accurate. Like,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, and that was like one little corner, one little slice, one little portion of your chart. What I think is also really cool about this story kind of going on with your first house is also all this stuff going on in your second house. So
Hmm.
you have Pluto, Mars, the moon, and Black Lilith, like
Oh my God, that's so
all
much.
in, yes, all in your second house in Sagittarius. Pluto is an outer planet that's very transformative. It's generational. So you actually are in the Pluto and Sagittarius generation of people. But it's in your second house in your chart. You also have Mars in Sagittarius in the second house. Mars is like kind of like the engine of the birth chart. It's like what drives you, what motivates you, your
Hmm.
ambition, like what's the thing that makes you go and makes you want to get up. The moon is how we emotionally nurture ourselves, our intuition. And then you also have the Black Lilith moon, which is a much smaller moon, but this one is areas in our life where we feel a little more like a black sheep. And it's very similarly to the Chiron. I love it because when you understand that placement, you can understand how like what makes you different or what made you feel like you didn't belong is actually a superpower.
Hmm.
But I love the story of what's going on in your second house because of the way it supports, what we covered with Scorpio, Chiron and Scorpio.
Yeah.
So when you have your moon in Sagittarius in the second house, that's somebody who really values their freedom, their independence, but
Hmm.
you also have like values, like you're open to learning about values from other cultures and other people. Like you're like like extremely open-minded. So like the opposite of somebody who's like we always did it this way. Our family's always this way. Instead, you're like, are you kidding me? Like, if I travel to another country and I love the way that they parent their children, I'm absolutely adopting that. Like,
Yeah.
open to learning, open to exploring. And one of the reasons you are that way is our Sagittarius, our moon sign talks a lot about our relationship with our mother.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have a Sagittarius moon, that is indicative of you, for whatever reason, having a lot of emotional like freedom and independence from your mom. You didn't have the kind of parent who like sat down with you and like helped you process your feelings or emotions,
Yeah.
whether they were like physically absent at some point of your life or emotionally absent or just like not available for it. They were the kind of mom who like gave you a lot of freedom. And so you kind of like matured and learned like how to deal with your own
Yeah.
emotions, and so you got to develop your own like value system. You felt like, okay, I don't have to do things the way that, my mom does it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you also have that Mars there, which is like you are very, Sagittarius is like very rooted in values and morals. And when you have your Mars there, so like you are very, very motivated by like creating you want to see the world like better reflect your morals. Like you want to see like
Yeah.
everybody eat. You want to see like everybody experience like abundance and growth. Like you really care about like the collective and you care about being like a person of integrity, and that really drives you, and like that really drives the way second house is like our material resources, like that really drives your motivation for wanting to make money. Like yes, you have your
Yeah.
moon there, so like emotionally you feel much safer when you are creating financial comfort for yourself, but also you're like want to see the world be a better place. Like if you have more money and you want to do good things with it, this world will be a better place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so like that's the motivation. The Pluto and Black Lilith here are really cool because it's like you also like feel a connection to the way that like our morals and our values are transforming and shifting in society. Like you're the kind of person who has beliefs that are maybe like disruptive to the norm, and like again somebody who wants to see like people who don't have resources, like you want to see everybody eat, and so you really feel hopeful that like
Yeah.
things will change. And when you were younger, you may have had like you may have felt like nobody understood like your perspective or your viewpoints about money or values. Like maybe you grew up with people who had like a huge scarcity mindset and you always had like a
Mm-hmm.
really expansive, abundant mindset, which I would guess because this is in Sagittarius. And you're like,
Yeah.
anything is possible. And they're like, what do you mean? Be realistic. Like this is like you're
Uh-huh.
delusional. And it's like, well, you have to have a little bit of delusion to move
To
things
make it
along in the
happen.
world.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I still deal with that. I resonate so much with that because I still deal with it. And I'm like, you don't have to know the how. You just have to know that it's gonna happen. And then I have people around me like,
absolutely.
what?
Absolutely. Yeah. To some people it's like so foreign, but to you it's like that's how you look at things. And
Mm-hmm.
I love, all these characteristics about Sagittarius placements. But one thing I do love to tell y'all too is like don't give like people advice about how you created things, because
Yeah.
it's like some things only work for you because of that
Uh-huh.
mindset you're able to maintain and because of that magnetism you're able to like tap into. But
Mm-hmm.
some people who are like much more rooted in like the realistic, whatever of the earth, or much more pessimistic will, like they'll see you do it and they'll be like, how did you do it? And they'll try and it never works. So just
Yeah.
don't give them advice.
Yeah. That's so accurate.
Just don't. Like, they're not going to understand the mindset that's required to like
Mm-hmm.
really make it happen.
Yeah.
Um, but it's such a superpower. It really is.
Mhm.
Let's get into like Saturn
Yeah.
return. And also like, what is relevant right now too,
Hmm.
because your chart is not just a guide to like the Saturn return when you're, 28 and a half. Saturn is, in the sky right now and it's in a specific
Yeah.
part of your chart.
Hmm.
So, like where it is in your chart right now, it is at 26 degrees of Pisces that we have Saturn. Like this is actively where it is. So, like, there is a conversation going on with Saturn and themes of your fifth house. So, let's start there with where Saturn is impacting your chart right now and where it
Hmm.
has been for the last couple of years, 2.5 years. And then we'll move into what your Saturn return is going to look like when Saturn interacts with
Amazing.
Taurus. Um, so we have Saturn is in the fifth house in your birth chart. So the fifth house is the house of creativity, the house of the self, the house of our hobbies, the house of romance. And so Saturn has been in Pisces for a while. And then it left Pisces recently to start its transit in Aries, but it's
Mm.
now retrograding back in Pisces. Um, so when you have Saturn in a sign, you're experiencing like the lessons, the learnings, experiences. But when Saturn retrogrades, it's this very reflective energy. It's looking back. So what I imagine has been happening in your life for the last 2.5, 3 years is you've been learning how to develop a discipline, a practice, and a commitment around your hobbies, around your creativity, around romance, around the self, like the things you do for yourself and taking care of yourself. Um, for that whole season. And it's still like Saturn, even when it goes back into Aries, like basically until it moves into your sixth house, it's still going to be really focused on these themes.
Hmm.
So a lot of the things that you were describing about like, oh my gosh, I feel like things are changing, like everything is transforming. The fifth house is the house of the self. And Saturn being here has also been across from a couple of really important planets in your chart. Your
Ah.
sun, which is literally who you are, your identity, your core ego self. And then Mercury here at 0 degrees in Libra, which is your communication, your ideas, your the way that you analyze and process things
Hmm.
and communicate things. So Saturn in opposition to that has been like asking you to question like, are you really telling people what you feel, or are you
Hmm.
trying to say what they want to hear? And how long are you going to keep doing that? Are you going to stop doing that? Are you going to change it up? Like, is that what
Yeah.
you want to continue doing? And then in terms of like your sense of self, your sun in the 11th house here in Virgo, it's like how much of your sense of self is defined by what you do for others, and
Hmm.
how much of your sense of self is who you like, the fun, creative, cool things you do for yourself. Like
Yeah.
how much of your identity is like who you are in service to and what you're giving and how you're showing up for somebody else. Like, and how much of it is like you remembering like the fun hobbies and cute
Hmm.
stuff and like dates and excitement that are just fun for you.
Yeah. Oh, you are gifted. I am like, like, whoa.
Yeah, so those themes, I mean, we're talking about Saturn is still right now still opposite your sun, and I told you it moves kind of slow. And
Yeah.
so until Saturn like moves much deeper into Aries, which will be at least, I think at least a few months into the new year,
Hmm.
those are the themes. That's where Saturn is applying pressure to you. It's like,
Yeah.
is this still working for you? Like, do you still want to communicate this way? Do you still want to be this person? And so
Hmm.
as a result of that, like 11th house, it's like you might really question your relationships, your friendships, like the
Hmm.
groups you're a part of, like the group
Yeah.
texts, the group chats, the community spaces, the organizations you're involved in, anything that like no longer feels like it's a part of you, or like you can't show up like your full self, or they expect a different version of you to show up for it,
Uh-huh.
is just like Saturn is like so ruthless. Like Saturn is like gonna apply the pressure where it's like you can't avoid it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so crazy because that's like so accurate. And then like, so is the goal when Saturn does move into like the Aries that I have that all figured out? Is that like why it's applying the pressure right now?
The pressure is an opportunity, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
nature is giving you a season that is ripe for you to build the kind of friend groups you always wanted. Like literally your
Yeah.
dream friend groups. And the thing that is between you and your dream friend group and your dream community and feeling supported as who you are as your full self is allowing for some unraveling, allowing for some things to
Hmm.
be revisited and reassessed. And so Saturn, applies that pressure. Like I said, it's free will. You can choose not to do it. It's just when it's right. Like I really think of it like meteorological like seasons or like, farmers use astrology a lot for planting. And it's I like this is the best time for you to do like a rehaul of the soil and plant
Hmm.
seeds for a friend group that is going to support you. Like I told you, Saturn moves slow for the next 14 years. Like literally
Wow.
besties for the next 14 years until Saturn gets back over here and gets into conversation with those planets. And so it's like, yes, it's not fun to tear up the soil. It's not great, but
Hmm.
this is like prime planting season. And so your efforts in those areas of your life are are hugely supported by the
Yeah.
energy of the season. So yeah, it doesn't feel great during, but thinking of the possibility
Yeah.
and what you can sow, like what you can, reap from it is really beautiful. It's having, friendships where you feel like you can share your weird hobbies with, where you
Hmm.
feel like, they're not going to judge like the next thing that you want to try, where they're going to support every era and transformation.
Yeah.
And then where they're going to connect you to more and more people who are just the same way. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, it's not fun where Saturn is in our chart, but I think it also is like very motivating. I kind of like to think of it like I am enrolled in lessons of this type right now for this season.
Hmm.
Like when Saturn was in Pisces, it was my second house of money and resources and finances. So like I have been treating it like I'm enrolled in being a student of my finances for this season, and it's my
Uh-huh.
job to get to the next level of whatever Saturn wants me to learn, whatever the foundation is, because it sets the foundation for the next, like, again, like Saturn, I don't have any planets in the second house. So for me, it's like really 28 and a half years. And if you think of it like that, like I'm enrolled in this topic, this class, and this theme and being intentional about engaging with it. So for you, that might be like listening to podcast episodes about navigating weird friend dynamics or reading books or
Yeah.
like, thinking like, how can I be a student? How can I give myself the skills? Like, what do I need to help me navigate this and like create the outcome that I really want? Whereas I've also seen people who have had tr Saturn transits and they just run away. And then the next time Saturn comes around, that problem comes back up again.
Yeah.
It's just he can't avoid nature.
Uh-huh. Oh, wow.
So that's what's going on right now. And so for you,
Hmm.
it's a lot about like you're kind of enrolled. If I were to like give the class you're enrolled in like a name, it would be like self and identity, or sorry, self and like friend groups, like self and
Hmm.
community. Where do you end and where does your community start? And how much have you defined like who you are and your identity based on your role in the friend group? Versus like how can your friend group better reflect like who you are and your interests and how you want to
Hmm.
transform. And so like I would suggest like you spending time in spaces like doing your hobbies a lot more
Hmm.
and just like meeting people in
Yeah.
places that you're doing stuff that you really love. Um, a lot of elements of your chart also talk about, you have like your midheaven in Leo, your North Node here, your Venus in the 10th house. Like you have a lot of beautifully supported career ambitions in your
Hmm.
chart. So like the people that you have around you for the next 14 years are really important, like really important
Hmm.
to those things that are going on. And if you have
Oh.
people who are like secret haters or like not the most, who aren't like clapping their hands enthusiastically at the things that you're doing, that's just like a much bigger liability down the line.
Yeah.
So like that's the gift of this season. It's like trying to set you up for really like what's coming, post your Saturn return like career wise.
Mm-hmm.
So while the work is like challenging now, it also just like really sets you up. But spending time in places that you enjoy, having fun, going on cool
Yeah.
little like date nights, like doing like things that just light up the inner child in you,
Mm-hmm.
are really, really helpful to navigate this Saturn transit. Like think about like how much of you is doing things because they're fun and how much of it is like, oh, well, so and so asked me to go shopping with them, so I have to be there and I have to do
Mm-hmm.
this. Da, da, da. Like, how many obligations do you have where it's like a I have to and not I get to be with
Oh
my
my
friends?
gosh. Yeah, I like feel that so hard and I feel like I have been doing that recently where I'm like I don't want to do it. I'm just not going to do it. And I don't care
Yes.
whose opinion like
Yes.
is said in between that. And it's so funny because recently too, I've like feel like I'm going through crisis like within my career and like being unhappy because there's like that freedom part of me that really wants to like have my own like thing or whatever. And so when I once said like just a few weeks ago, I remember saying like I think I have evil eye on me and I need to reevaluate my friends. Like not even joking, I like fully said that and I was like, wait, I need to step back and figure out who this person is. So this like checks off for sure.
Yeah, yeah, it's like a lot about that season. And, Saturn's doing its thing in retrograde right now. So it's like
Yeah.
helping you reflect on also like the work that you've done. Like, I'm sure you've made a lot of progress in the last 2.5 years around this.
Yeah.
This is like really like the last stretch and last push. But yeah, this retrograde is going to be very reflective in that the energy of Saturn retrograde will be, or sorry, Saturn will. I think it goes direct, like literally around Thanksgiving. Honestly, the astrology around Thanksgiving is so tea. I'm so excited to write about it on Substack. But yes, the this is an interesting season through the end of November and then early December when it goes direct in Aries. That will also be real interesting. So that's like your
Hmm.
current season, but the big dog is when Saturn comes back to Taurus.
Yeah.
So that's next after Saturn continues its transit back through Aries. I think around, I'm gonna mix up so many years in my head, but we started the Saturn transit through Aries. It's now retrograde back into Pisces. It'll have to make its way fully through Aries, which will take
Hmm.
still about another 2 years, 2.5 years before we're getting into Taurus. The themes of your Saturn return are in the seventh house. They are in the house of one-on-one relationships, of marriage, of partnerships, business partnerships. This is also if you work with clients one-on-one, if you have one-on-one services in your work, the seventh house really relates to that. You have Saturn retrograde in the seventh house. And so Saturn represents areas in our chart, areas in our life where we feel like there's delays. And then yours is also retrograde. So like you were born while Saturn was in retrograde, which is
Hmm.
like adds another color to this conversation.
Oh
Um,
goodness.
just as Saturn, or sorry, just as the moon tells us about relationships with our mothers or maternal figures, Saturn is the same thing for our paternal figures
Ah.
and what we learn there. So, with you having Saturn retrograde in your seventh house, I would imagine that you had a kind of relationship with your paternal figure where they were a little bit distant, like again, physically or emotionally, like it just where they're like, okay, I'll take care of the bills, but not like really sitting down and like holding your hand
Yep.
and like talking you through experiences or anything like that. And so as a result of that, you are somebody where like when you were looking for marriage or partnership, you may have one either felt like how come this is delayed? Like, how come I'm not getting married as like young as I thought I was? Or alternatively, this is indicative of marrying somebody a lot older than you,
Interesting.
of being somewhere with somebody older than you, because one thing that your experience in your chart is desiring from this is you want to learn what it means to have this committed, stable one-on-one relationship where there's emotional honesty, where there's emotional connection, where there's emotional
Yeah.
investment. And so a lot of what you are learning in your one-on-one dynamics and partnerships is that lesson of learning how to hold space for the mushy gushy and emotional. And so what will be interesting during your Saturn return is when Saturn comes back into the seventh house, you are going to experience or see like lots of events and have conversations that will make you see what you have learned from your paternal figure and maybe ways that
Mhm.
you hold back your mushy gushiness and your feeling side because of what you have learned. And so the Saturn return will give you lessons, opportunities, experiences for you to open your heart a little bit more, for you to be available for the emotional ebbs and flows of a relationship and not just expecting, like, okay, well, everything is fine as long as we do the things that we're supposed to do, and instead
Hmm.
having more intimacy and connection there.
Yeah. Wow. Oh my gosh. I'm like, so I'm like, oh my God. So how like I guess like how can people like prepare? Is it like is your suggestion like just get your reading and like know what to expect or like what do you think?
Yeah, I think getting a reading is helpful, but really I think focusing on a few tools and a few things that you can do. A Saturn
Mm-hmm.
transit, like I said, it's almost 3 years. So it's like over 3 years, like kind of thinking of it like a theme and breaking it down into a few things. So like
Mm-hmm.
if I were for example, say that I was having Saturn in my sixth house, which you will have when Saturn, goes into Aries, it'll be in your sixth
Mm-hmm.
house. The sixth house is of our day-to-day work, our schedule, like our colleagues, our things like that. If I were having Saturn in my sixth house, I would set like a few basic goals. Like number one, I would look at my work environment. I want to better my work environment, whether I want better colleagues, whether I want a
Mm-hmm.
better office, whether I want to upgrade my home office, like whatever it is, I'm just going to focus on that. Number two, I'd want to get better at scheduling. I'd want to get better at my calendar. I'd want to have a better sense and flow of what I need around my calendar. And then number three, I would be like, I want to get a new skill that makes me better at my job. Like I want to
Mm-hmm.
learn a skill that relates to my day-to-day work that will make things easier, that will optimize things. And I would literally just focus on like three things because the sixth house is like so rich. Like it could be for one person, it can be their health. Like some people need to focus on their health and drinking water and eating vegetables, when they have
Yeah.
a Saturn transit in their sixth house. But I think when you can focus on like a few things that become the theme of your annual goals, of your monthly goals, then you're letting yourself focus on something because then when the challenges come up and you're in those seasons that are like annoying and you don't feel like you're making progress, you can just ground yourself in a few things because you don't want to feel too overwhelmed by the amount of
Mm-hmm.
information because all of these transits, like I said, are so rich and we can analyze forever and ever, but it's really about like what can you practically execute. And I
Right.
would much rather have a client do three small things over 3 years and have the feeling of accomplishment and success and focus they'll have by committing to that than somebody who is like constantly looking at their chart, constantly wants another reading, constantly wants to revisit, and they're not
Mm-hmm.
actually executing and doing that. Like it's really about both. You can have all the information in the world, but if it's too much for you to take action or you're not actually like doing the work, it really doesn't matter.
Oh, that's such good advice. You're right. You're
Doing
right.
doing one thing well in an astrological transit is like so much better. And that's really just like so many areas of our lives, right? It's like
Hmm.
we want instant transformation, but it's like when it comes to like working out or like our health or like anything,
Yeah.
it's always just about like being able to do it like 1% better and showing up for it a little bit at a time. And so yeah, I think that like astrology should be a toolkit for like when you have goals in any areas, whether it's career or health or relationships, you can use a reading to kind of give you a toolkit to really set you up for a lot. Like we even in this like short time we went into so much depth with your chart. Like I would
Yeah.
hope like those are enough tools for you to be able to use for like months, just
Yeah.
executing, just processing, just thinking on. And then when you're like, okay, well now I have another goal and I want another set of tools or I want more information or more clarity, then you come back and it's like we can talk about that goal and that specific thing. So I love working with clients who are bringing me their goals or they're describing what season they're in or they're describing what challenge it is. And then we can use the chart as a framework for that to really like set up the next steps.
Yeah, I think, oh, that's such good like advice. I feel like so often, like how I first came to you, I was like, they make it seem like this big, intense, like scary thing that is happening. And I'm like freaking out. But I feel like you did such a good job, like just explaining like how you can work with it instead of feeling like your life is falling apart when this does happen for you.
Totally, totally. It's the Saturn returns are really just setting you up for that next era and success. Astrologically, like it is not normal or average for people to reach huge heights in their career or the biggest heights of their
Mm-hmm.
career before their Saturn return. So it really is like the astrological adulthood and maturing. And so yeah, I think when we can embrace it that way, it's much better.
Cool. And like, okay. Maybe second to last question I have for you. Um,
Yeah.
like if someone's skeptical of like astrology, what's one thing that you do want them to take away from this conversation?
If someone is skeptical of astrology, Um, I would say I I guess this is like a little cheeky, but I think if somebody is skeptical of astrology, I would say like prove that the moon isn't full, like prove that the oceans don't move with the tides. Like it's we have never been able to prove that like we're not all connected together and whether you believe it through physics and science or you believe it because of your faith or you understand it through astrology. Astrology is just a tool to help us look at how everything is connected to each other. And if you believe that, all people and species and nature and the trees that we're all connected to each other, then this is just a way for you to communicate that. So yeah, I think that's what I would say.
Awesome. And how can everyone find you?
I'd say social media is the easiest place to find me. I'm mostly on TikTok and Instagram at just one Gursha. Gursha spelled Gursha. And I also write weekly posts on Substack and have just launched doing horoscopes too. So keep
Ooh.
them very, very like practical, like very tough love auntie type of cosmic horoscopes. And then also weekly free posts. So if you want to get a dose of astrology insight into your email inbox every week, that is the best place to go. And you can book readings with me at justonegursha.com. Everything is linked on social media as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'm sure so many people appreciate this and will be following and reaching out, including me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This was a pleasure.
Ew.